take that guy again. All right. Well, I said I'd have a little look at the icicle problem I'm messing with. So let's jump across to that, I guess. Let me change this. Alright. Quiet you. Where is my OBS? There it is. So we'll go over here. Oh, okay. Alright. We're doing that. Yeah, I guess it's kind of tricky to show a lot of the context here. I'll have to... How do we make the font size bigger? It's meant to work? Oh, it only works on the keypad. Okay. So, yeah, I think my ultimate solution is going to be a lot of caching stuff. So, excuse me, just to give an outline of how all this works. We have a file version scene class, which contains a list of file version scene properties, and then it has a couple of other relevant bits and pieces, the version number that it has, the text delimiters that it uses, that's the separator between the key and the value in a key-value pair. If there's a line terminator for multi-line stuff, then that's kept in here as well. And as something like quick and dirty, I've also put to help with sort of finding a particular value quickly. I've put these couple extra bits and pieces in. But it has a constructor which sets some default values, and a destructor that clears that. The file version scene prop is declared up here somewhere. Here it is. So it knows about its delimiter, it knows about its terminator. These are like stored as local things here so that they're easy to access within the class. We don't have to do a lot of jumping around. It wastes a little bit of memory, but I think it sort of helps the code be easier to maintain, and reduces some small overheads. So it's got a static function that will return the value that we identify this property with, and then has some things about whether or not it's tied to a specific state or something, and then every property class has a export and read function that we pass the scene that we want to export data from or import data to in, along with the some other bits that we can actually get that data out of. And then for a particular version of this file, we have you can treat this one as a header. It's a CPP file, which means just because the way GCC works, I want to explicitly make sure that it's getting recompiled every time, and header files aren't sort of compiled unless they've changed, which is I just for the sake of compilation and not making my build scripts more complex than they currently are, I just call it a CPP, so we can pretend that it's a header. But yeah, so in an actual implementation of that, we have version 0.1, which I have here, and it defines its version number. It defines what its delimiter is. In this case, it's a space. The line terminator for multi-line properties, and then the music file reader and the music file property, which I mentioned were just kind of shortcuts for getting to stuff. But basically, what we do is we add to this. This is the map, which is a data type that has a a key and a value. So think of it as like an associative array. Um, and so we set the key to be whatever the property is for that particular. Sorry, well the actual key. Got too many things using the same name to make this stuff easy to describe. So in this case, this is just the letters CL is the what get property will return for the color property, and then we add a new instance of that class. And so if we go up here, we can see here it is here. We're returning CL for get property. It's not tied to specific states. So we don't, we can leave that as false. It's multi-lines, we can leave that as false. And then export data is just a matter of, outputting the RGB value as hex from integers that we've got separate red, green, blue channel values for. And then read data is basically the same thing. We take the line in, and then we just sort of do a substring of the line that we have. We get 2 characters. We turn them from a string into a long, which will parse that hex value, and then it puts it into the scene that we pass in. And so this means that in terms of how it kind of like all the different properties are kind of vaguely similar. These ones are probably more different, I guess. But they all have like an export data and import data or read data function. They all act on the scene to do things. Trying to think of one that's kind of So this one's what am I doing? What am I talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about. So it's kind of all of this is the read data code, and the export data code is copied and pasted from what I was previously doing. But it looked more like if we zoom down through here somewhere, probably could have zoomed in on that other file, but I didn't. Maybe I've already deleted all the stuff that was in here. I thought I kept some old bits of code around, but maybe not. No, they're down here in the state manager. Yeah, okay. So this is what that sort of thing used to look like. We'd like open a file like this, and then call getLine on it, and then we would grab the first couple of characters or first bunch of characters, and we would look to see if or look at the first check to see if it's a section heading. If it's a section heading, then we do one thing. If it's not, then we get like the first bit up to the delimiter, which was I think a space. We end up getting we find out whether or not the section is a puzzle or a task, and then we go through and the delimiter was an equal sign in these ones. And then we go, okay, well if the key is the name, then the value is the name of the puzzle. If the key is editor X, then the value is needs to be parsed and stuff. And so it was all of this stuff that's been just copied and pasted into a more modular way of expressing this stuff. Which means that if I ever just want to change the value for a property, I change it here once instead of changing it like 3 times in various other places where things were previously being loaded and saved. But the problem now is that I think the problem that I'm encountering is that when I load user config, user scene, load scene data. So this is the one that I want. We loop through each line in the scene file. We check to see if it's a comment, and if it's a comment, then we ignore it. But then we do some bollocks to get rid of Windows line endings, and then we we search for the first occurrence of the delimiter. And if the delimiter is in there, then we get the first part before the delimiter, which is like the key that we then search for in the map of previously defined things. But what this means is that we're calling map.find for every single line. And that's really the only thing that's different out of how all of this works compared to how it used to work. So what I need to do is look at the implementation of the map, find out what it's doing for comparison with string keys, and then either write something more efficient or switch to a different data structure or a data type. Maybe a hash map might yield faster results for looking up stuff, especially since these values aren't changing. Or alternatively, I just load everything at startup and accept that I'm going to be chewing a bunch more RAM than I otherwise would be. It's not a lot. Like if you run it with the editor, then it loads everything into RAM to start with. So, yeah. But it does kind of bum me out. I would like previously I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna try and be efficient with like how much RAM I'm using. I'm not gonna load anything that's not necessary. That means that if you like leave and then come back, then if you've made any changes to the data files, then that will reflect that. But yeah. So maybe. I don't know, maybe I should be doing some profiling on this to work out what's going on. It's also possible that file I/O in general is it's what's happening. There is one extra bit of overhead that I was doing that I wasn't doing before, which is this kind of determine which loader is the right one to use for the actual file. So it goes in and looks for a file version definition line and picks the appropriate one based on that. And I can't really not do that because that is, that's my backwards compatibility guarantee, and that's the whole reason that I wrote all this code. But yeah, I'm gonna do some experiments and either play around with a different data type for this, or maybe I can pull all of the keys and cache them and loop through them and do a string comparison that way. But maybe a hash map is a better way to go long term. I guess the tricky part is that at this stage, I don't know. I don't know what will be in the file. I don't know what version of the file it's going to be. I don't know what the properties are going to be. Don't know. I kind of wanted to keep it all strings so it would be easy for anybody who wanted to like break out a debugger to scrutinize the memory and see what's going on. Don't know. Anyway, I feel like this comes back to what I was saying before, where I particularly with this sort of work, I feel really uncomfortable streaming it. I can sit here and talk about what I had in mind, but yeah, I don't feel very comfortable at all. Actually, like compiling and running stuff and writing code for this particular project on stream. I don't know why this is different to. Maybe I care more about this than I cared about Hivetime, but Hivetime was definitely a lot easier. And like, Hivetime stuff looks like what it's meant to look like. It's easier to understand and have correct expectations from, but this is something completely different. Where it's very difficult to intuit from just watching exactly what the experience of playing it is like. But may I know if you're still around? The version that I have sent through to you has a couple of bugs. The biggest one is that east and west are flipped in the compass. That's I've addressed that at my end. Don't be super put off by that, I guess. But yeah, hopefully that won't be too off-putting. That was I made some decisions very early on, back when this project as well was started for Game Jam. And I was sitting down deciding whether or not I wanted to use left-handed space or right-handed space. And I made a decision that felt like the right decision to be making at the time. And since I have found that there are several places where I'm needing to flip what I'm using, and that the descriptive version of the compass is one of them. So yeah, I guess way down the track, if I ever get around to refactoring the renderer, then I probably would try and normalize and unify that. Hi, Chainsaw Carpenter. How you going? I think you've just sort of caught me at the end of my my stream here. But welcome. I'm just talking about some of the planned work that I've got on my plate for the engine that I'm writing. I guess there are probably people in chat who haven't seen who haven't seen the let's just bring this in. Oh, hooray! I haven't saved it. Haven't made any changes. Hooray! We haven't seen the editor, so I might fire up the editor and debug editor. Alright, this is what my scene editor looks like. This is what Winter's Wait looks like at the moment. Probably don't feel super comfortable showing off a lot of this either. But I've been giving some thought. Like I would really like. Yeah, there are a few things that I need to do in this before I want to do the next Icicle Jam. I think one of them is some kind of scene outline or outliner for whatever mode you're in. So if you're in a scene, it'll list all of the objects and sounds and stuff that are in your scene. If you're out here in the scene editor, it'll list the scenes that are there, so that you can like just click on one to jump straight to it. I'd also like to implement some little dialogue things, so that if you yeah, let's say that you've got something here that's like an exit, and you want to set its action to something, to a scene name that doesn't exist, that it will excuse me, show just a quick little dialogue for creating that new scene, without heading back to the scene editor first. And a couple of little convenience things like that, I think might be worthwhile. I still have no nice way to indicate exit relationships when those relationships are tied to states that aren't current, or I feel like there should be, some indicator of like whether or not the exit is always enabled, or whether or not you have to do something to enable it. Because right now it's a little bit tricky to sort of work that stuff out. We've still got the PAX demo end cutscene in here. You oldie placeholder text. Yeah, still a bunch of work. I don't think I've shown this outside of I don't need those open at the moment. It can go away. I think I've shown it outside of my Patreon thingy, but I have a my to-do list here. Let's just fix that. Doink. Get them lines going. This is my to-do list for or the last to-do list that I put together. That outlines the various bits and pieces that I have to have planned and sort of want to get done. And there's a lot of stuff around the editor. Like it doesn't have have I not put it in here? I haven't. Okay, so the editor doesn't have any undo support at the moment, and that should probably be in there. In fact, I might pop that in now. Let's just stick that there. There we go. Undo support, and then that is a prerequisite for. Hello. Can we pop that on there now? Hey, there we go. And just give that the same styling that these had. Doink. Now we got a little arrow. How nice. Yeah, so like the editor doesn't have undo support. There are other things. Anything that's blue is kind of optional. Anything that's white is stuff that I want to do. So like obvious things like there are things I can programmatically detect as being wrong. So a report on that sort of stuff, like missing states or missing scene names in object actions, or missing bad references in puzzle stuff. And then there's a whole bunch of other things. The config handler has been like a big thing, and the IO refactor. These are the two things that I've just kind of finished, and they're big dependencies for a lot of other things. I need to get them done because without doing that first, anything I do in the meantime is would have been effort that I would have had to have or had have wasted. As I said, changing file formats now or adding new properties to files is trivial, where it was previously complex. So those kind of things. If I want to add a new a new scene property for manually controlling, or an object property, sorry, for manually controlling the orientation that the player will have when they enter a scene after traversing an exit, then now I can just add that in, and that's pretty straightforward. But previously, adding it in would have meant that there was more stuff to migrate to this new file handling system. But yeah, everything that's purple I've got question mark on. So things like interactive dialogue, they're obviously that's a big thing. If I put it in, it'll be a whole bunch of work, and I'm not entirely certain that I need to. I think Winter's Wake as a game will work without it, but I think it's something that some other people who might want to use the engine may like to have. So I was kind of, I've got these design constraints that sort of define the type of experience that I want to give, and that is that the game should be entirely playable with 2 buttons and 2 axes. And having a dialogue system that works within those constraints without breaking the player's orientation that they have within the game world when they're sort of during gameplay. I need to make sure that it works with that, because I haven't updated it in a long time. So the only thing it works with is like the Rift DK1 and the Rift DK2. But for VR support, what I want to absolutely need to make sure happens is that you don't end up facing a different direction once you've finished interacting with the dialogue system, that you're back facing the same direction that you were previously facing, without Um, yeah, without making that feel awkward. It's like it's still got to feel like it's usable. Um, I've got an idea. Got a little thing that I might try. But in the interest of getting the game out, I'm happy to kind of just scrap that. And the same goes for anything that's purple, like gesture support here. Like this idea that that the game could detect different gestures. So if you're like shaking the mouse around in frustration, then we could respond to that and say, that you're you feel dizzy or something, or yeah, if you look around too fast, maybe it says that you feel dizzy, or a few other things. But that's like really minor and doesn't necessarily give us a lot of valuable stuff. Um, yeah, anything blue is also something that I'm willing to drop. Um, yeah, I'm kind of keen to do these ones, like to allow for like chapter start points, and episodic content, modular content stuff, so you can drop in a new resources folder and have that show up in the main menu as being part of the same game. So if I wanted to do like a spicy meatball episodic series or something, that would, you know, be able to handle that. I kind of have most of what's needed in order to make all that work. There's a bit of interface work here, but yeah, the back end, I'm already using FizzFS for some stuff. Um, yeah, dunno, dunno. Well, I guess undo is actually not undecided. I kind of can't really ship can't ship an editor tool that doesn't have um, there we go, doesn't have undo support. Oh, we've got proper raycasting now. That's done. You know what? I'm gonna make a new thing. That's gonna be done. Done. And I think I will make that a stroke style thing. Just make it dashed or something. It's the most widely spaced dashes we can get. It's too big. Let's try these ones. That'll do. Excuse me. So where are we? Raycasting is working now. Whoop. There we go. And done IO refactor, and the config handler is pretty much done. We'll call them done. Doop 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 doop. Yeah, it's tricky because these two things in particular have been like massive blockers for other developments. So now that they're done, or at least once I fix this, once I fix this optimization problem I'm stuck on, then I can push ahead with a lot of other bits and pieces. Oh hey, this one is like totally discarded. I'm not going to improve Mac packaging. Mac packaging is staying how it is. And Mac users will have to live with the consequences. Hey, so Dialot. This is I wrote this a couple of years ago, but this is sort of where I've been at for Winter's Wake and Icicle for a while. So back in 2018, when I wrote this, was I think it was before I started helping out with Hand of Fate 2. I think. And I've had like two very large work items, which is a big refactor of the I/O system and config handling that everything else is kind of dependent on. So there hasn't been any reason to update this until now, where I'm reaching have pretty much finished those Hmm. Hmm. I also don't know what to do about VR stuff because I'm not going to move away from OpenGL for rendering. Doesn't seem to make sense for me to have multiple renderers, and I'm not interested in sacrificing compatibility with stuff that doesn't support Vulkan. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Optimization blocker thing. Um, the two features I was working on were blockers. I have to do a little bit of optimization on the IO refactor that I've got at the moment. I've discovered that it's not that it's causing some problems, so I need to resolve that before I can jump onto other feature work. But yeah, until I got this IO refactor and file version handling stuff, it didn't make sense to work on any feature work because that would just make extra work for me that I'd need to migrate across to the new file formats and stuff. I guess I have done a OCR friendliness pass, which is, debatable value, I guess, in that it's not like a long-term thing, but it's something I was happy to do and something that seems to have found some positive benefit. So let's mark that as done. Did I put... I've got auto-pagination for cutscenes in now, but not for anything else. It doesn't really mark. It doesn't really help with that. Automatic pagination will help when I add like font size customization stuff. All the Steam VR stuff is optimized for Vulkan. And OpenHMD doesn't have a renderer component anymore, so it used to be that vendors were like, hey, in order to make everything cheap and make everything easy to work with, we're gonna ship devices that are just monitors, and you will draw a normal window to it, and you will draw normal pixels to that normal window, and that's how it works. The current VR support works that way. In fact, if I do, I still have. Oh yeah, here we go. Let's. Oh, hang on. I have no way to like discard current changes. Yeah, so the current version is you run the game, or you go back to the menu. Where is it? We got HMD input is enabled now, and I cannot remember my. Nope, not that one. Nope, can't remember my shortcuts. Hey, there we go. Yeah, and it's not. If I know. Yeah, haven't sort of updated it since I put these other things in. But yeah, so the current VR support is just draws this to a window. If I want to support current devices, I'm probably going to have to do direct rendering to the device, because all the video driver vendors decided that it would be a great idea to disable these devices' abilities to present themselves as normal monitors, because they're shit stains, and want to make everybody's lives difficult. Yeah, it's deeply frustrating, and the sort of rationale I got from Nvidia people was that they want to make sure that the HMD's never, the default device that that like all your startup stuff goes to before the window manager's loaded. They don't want to risk that happening. So like the second that it's detected would turn the device off and allow people to just set up their direct rendering contexts if they want. And I was like, well, that's. I mean, that sounds nice in theory, but you haven't done that for anything else that's not a monitor that shouldn't have that happen. Like, yeah, it's just a pain in the ass, really. Chainsaw Carpenter, yes, I am doing a text adventure thing that has some level of VR support. Yep. Yeah, nobody cares about making this stuff easy to access anymore. They're just like, if it's in the big engines, then that's all that matters. Which is really sad because it cuts off the thing that I thought would be most interesting about this generation of VR, this iteration of VR, the thing that sort of more or less was kicked off with the Oculus Rift was that was meant to be a standard HDMI monitor, a standard HID input device that operated via USB, and that was all it was. So as long as you could talk to USB input devices and read axes and stuff out of that, then that's easy to work with. As long as you can draw a window and put it on a monitor, then the display was easy to work with. And I was most interested in what that meant for allowing VR development to be accessible to people who weren't on the platforms that were being vendor supported. So if somebody wanted to plug it into their Raspberry Pi and make some low fidelity VR stuff, then that was definitely an option. But now that everybody's moved away from that, everybody's pushing higher res stuff, which is harder to render as well. I feel like that potentially hobbyist side of things is a lot less accessible, unless you're using Unity or Unreal or Godot or whatever else. Unless you're using an engine that comes with prepackaged VR support, doing VR stuff is a bit more of a pain in the ass, and that cuts out lots of the space that I thought was interesting. No, there are not new drivers for the Oculus Rift. There is a cross-platform community-maintained driver called OpenHMD, which is what I use. But as I mentioned before, it doesn't have any rendering APIs, so I'm still going to have to implement per-device rendering, which is an absolute crotch punch. To the extent that I will... I don't know. I don't know if I'll ship with Linux with VR support at all. Yeah, but I was like, what are poor people going to make? What are people who don't have access to powerful computers that can render the crazy high resolution stuff? What happens if VR doesn't become fidelity oriented? Where does that leave us, and what kind of interesting and unexpected experiences do we have if it's Tinkerer focused rather than basically gatekeeped down so that only people who already make big budget games have the ability to do, well received VR stuff. And yeah, I lament the lost future that never happened. Miriam's sitting here rolling her eyes because she's heard this a million times. Dear. But yeah, so that's my game. It's kind of playable. It's kind of readable. But it's not perfect. This is running at the DK1 resolution, and I do have to make some text size changes in order to make it readable. It's not centered anymore, thanks to some other changes that I made since I first implemented this. So, yeah, things to do. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's hard to not sound bitter. But that's the other thing, if I end up if this ends up providing an experience that's enjoyable to people, then this is at least, hopefully, going to be easy for people to work with. No, that's not the button I meant to press. I don't know why I put play scene there. I think the play scene should probably go here. Yeah, so got a lot of UI work to do here as well. I mentioned undo support isn't present. I also don't have... I wrote my own GUI widget stuff for all of this. Mostly for the reason that... that's interesting that it says it's dirty even though I haven't changed anything. Mostly so that I could get things up and happening quickly and without pulling in another dependency. I was like, can I make something quick? And turns out I can, and that's wonderful. Wrong button. I don't have any really long descriptions here. That's the problem, you don't want to have crazy long descriptions. But if something's long, it'll scroll properly. If we got anything that's like super long here, why does this only have 2 stats? Oh, it's the branch. Yeah, the tree's got a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, I don't have anything with like really long descriptions, but it scrolls and stuff, and there are a few other things. But the downside of rolling my own GUI widget stuff is that I don't get any accessibility features for free. So I don't get access to any kind of GUI widget provided undo stack. I'll have to write my own undo support. I don't get access to like existing screen reader compatibility stuff. So for vision impaired users, I would love to. And excuse me, I don't necessarily know whether or not I can implement or can really sort of give the time to implement the kind of thing that I would like to have, but in an ideal world, I would really like for this to be accessible to vision impaired people who would like, if anybody who plays one of my games, I would very much like them to have the option to, if someone plays an Icicle game, then I would very much like for them, if they feel inspired, to be empowered to make something, regardless of who they are. And so if I'm adding features that allow the game to be played by people who have to rely on assistive tools for reading, then I would also like the editor to be accessible in the same way. But yeah, that's a bunch of work to set all that up for my very quick and slightly dirty editor thing. libopenHMD, yeah, I mean that sounds. I don't know what the current version is. It's been years since I last updated it. Let's have a look. .org, I believe it is. Oh, it's .net now. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is the thing. I don't know if it'll be in. Oh, it seems like it's in some repositories now as well. There are a few different language bindings. I've got an ogre-based demo now. That's cool. It's cool. There was, and I guess it didn't go anywhere, given that it's not here. But there was a an effort to add. Yeah, it's just frustrating because they're like, can we support rotation and position? And it's like, yes, we can support rotation, and that's perfect for me because I'm only using rotation. There's no reason for me to use position at the moment. They support for a whole bunch of different devices, and that's really cool. But it doesn't note that there is no direct rendering API, which I guess maybe that's outside the scope of of the project, because back when the project started, it was like all of these devices were just presenting as normal monitors, and so rendering's just not relevant. These are just for input rather than output. Um, yeah. Oh well. You got any other stuff under showcase that's interesting? We did a Neverball. It's a project that I worked on. And these are screenshots of it running in OpenHMD. Which I don't know what that is. And yeah, that's a bit of fun to work on. It's a game that's like disorienting, even without VR. I found that people who didn't find had gotten used to playing the game and didn't find the game disorienting didn't necessarily seemed less likely to have problems with VR. So it's an interesting observation. I didn't know that someone had done something for Jedi Academy. Might have a bit of play with that. See if it works with Jedi Outcast, which is slightly more exciting. But yeah, so part of this community haven't been very active lately, but they have an IRC channel and a bunch of people talking. Yeah, it's like if you got questions about how this stuff works, there's a Godot plugin as well. It's interesting. All right. So yeah, where were we? What were we talking about? Oh, I didn't even have this on screen. Like it was sitting off to the side here. This is more or less the whole thing. Yeah, you can see it there. So you can also hide stuff, which is handy. You just sort of select it and then H to hide things. Alt H to unhide. Tells you how many scenes you got up at the top corner here. There's also a puzzle editor, which tells you like you use to manage the logical progression through the game. So yeah, this engine has its own kind of conceits, paradigms, whatever, that may not necessarily be compatible with people's expectations for how adventure game stuff should be made. But in this, like everything is controlled by this sort of state manager, which is entirely independently defined from the objects. So we've got a branch here that you pick up. This object branch never goes away; it always stays there. It has no logic attached to it at all. It has some like this type thing here determines what the interaction icon will be if there is one. But other than that, like there's nothing in the object definition here that actually controls anything. It has a state, but it can't change its own state. The puzzle editor, the state manager, handles all of that. So if we go here, if you interact with the branch, the object defined as a branch, it'll show an action message which says you pick up the branch and describes it and stuff. Gives and removes, adds and removes items from your inventory. The inventory is entirely cosmetic. There's no actual branch, object, entity, anything that's tracked has no logic attached to it. But this action of interacting with a branch changes the states of a couple of things. One of them is the branch, so it moves the branch from state 0 to state 1, and it changes the state of the exit from 0 to 1, and changes the state of the avalanche string from 0 to 1. Hey, Mr. Squarepeg, how you doing? I'm talking about how my game engine works, I guess. I wasn't planning to, but I've gotten into descriptive mode. Yeah, so like I worked on a bunch of adventure games, and the most common problems I found were that it was very easy to make stuff in a way where logic is tied to the in-game representation of entities in such a way that it becomes impossible to see and track that logic and its various states across the entire game. So you have a key entity, and your key entity has like a bunch of attributes and functions and things it can do, and you have like a door entity, and it has like a locked state, and it checks for a key entity, and then you've got two separate things that you need to make sure. As you continue to work on and iterate on your game, you've got two separate things to maintain. You like spread that out across an entire adventure game. You've got a couple hundred different entities and objects and things to make sure they're all doing what they need to do. It's very easy to wind up in a situation where you go, okay, well, the player's done things in an order that I haven't expected, or they've loaded a save and I've forgotten to change. I've forgotten to change this thing, change that thing, and suddenly the players wound up in a place where they're like behind a locked door but don't have the key for it, and so the door's locked, they can't get out, and everything's stuck and everything's broken. And so I was like, well, how would I go about avoiding that? And that was to sort of define, to have what is known as a puzzle dependency chart in adventure game developer circles, which is kind of effectively just a flowchart that shows every interaction that the player will have. Typically that might be a drawn document or a digital document that's entirely separate from your code, that you need to maintain alongside stuff to sort of keep a broad scale picture understanding of your whole game. And I was like, well, I feel like if I was going to try and avoid those kind of state problems, then I'd represent the entirety of my game logic with one of those diagrams and have that be the actual state control mechanism for the engine itself. So here we've got this get branch thing. There are a couple of things that the scene editor, the object editor, if we look here, the type of this changes to an exit, and that does determine what its behavior is going to be. If you interact with it, then it will go from there to the crossroads scene, and that's not represented here in the puzzle editor. And the puzzle editor doesn't care so much about where you are, and what it cares about is whether you're interacting with stuff. And you'll see that if you do use that exit, then it actually tracks that and then marks this entire puzzle as solved. Yeah, I think we were talking about storylets a while back. The last time I dropped in for a chat with I gotta remember the name of the group. Adventure Chat. When there was last time I dropped in to have a chat, a bumble around there. I've been a bit too busy to drop in, but that feels more like a better fit for dynamic storytelling rather than crafted narrative stuff. Yeah. It's tricky in that it requires a different way of thinking. Like for the first Icicle Jam, I brought on board some people who had experience making adventure games, and those people were very like, I just want to do this. I'm like, yeah, I know you just want to do that, but that's not how it works. But yeah, and so it's like it's got this notion of a puzzle. So we get this puzzle called Get Branch. It's worth 0 points because Winter's Wait doesn't care about points. Spicy Meatball has points. And multiple puzzles can be dependent on each other in different ways. So in this case, in order to get into I'm going to assume that everyone's played the Winter's Wait demo, and that spoiling it is not necessarily a big deal. So if that is a big deal, then time to stop listening. But in order to enter the village and open the gates, you need to first have a stone. And so the way the logic control flow structure kind of goes is that the open village gates puzzle, which allows the interaction with the bell tower, is dependent on get stones, which is this one here. It only has one task, but once you pick up the rocks, then next time you interact with the bell tower, then it will progress this puzzle and update all the states for the things and move things onwards in a way that allows you to progress through the game. And likewise, it then unlocks the skip stone puzzles, which allows you to skip stones on the lake. Whereas interacting with the lake prior to that, if we look at Lake Rocks here, it updates the state of the lake that allows you to, provides you with the icon for clicking on it, which the last one in this puzzle sets it off. But yeah, once this is completed, anything with a green arrow is then doable. It also negates other things. So the red dotted line will mean that now this puzzle is no longer doable once this one is complete, and this one is no longer doable once that one is complete. Anything that's yellow will reset the puzzle that's pointing to. So in this case, if you've picked up a snowball, and then you throw a snowball at the bell tower, then that will reset and allow you to throw another snowball at the bell tower if you go and get a second one. And yeah, so I don't have any. Oh no, I think maybe down here. Yeah, I got some blue ones. Blue ones are ore dependencies rather than ands. So in this case, this disarm traps puzzle requires that you have completed the enter layer puzzle and the get lockpick puzzle. So if you've done both of those, then this one will be available. But this enter layer puzzle has ore dependencies of these three possible solutions leading into this puzzle. So yeah, and you'll see that they all negate each other with the red dotted lines as well. So only one of these three actions can be taken, which then leads you further into the game. Yeah, I would like to do another jam. I just need to do more engine work. Otherwise, I'm just going to get the same feedback, right? Like, I want to make sure that when I run it, I'm running it in a... my goal with running it is to get feedback on how the editor tools are working for people. And I have some feedback from the first one that I still haven't quite actioned yet. And I'd like to implement some of those changes and some other changes that I want to make. And then after that, run another Icicle jam to sort of see how well that stuff has been received, how it changes people's perceptions, what kind of experiences it leads people towards having. But yeah, I might open up Spicy Meatball because it's a bit easier to parse than that. I haven't Zoom support for the puzzle editor is another feature that I don't have that I would very much like to have. So that is I think that was 2017. Yes. I guess just resources. It's been a while. Hey, here we go. Whoop. This will be the first time that I've... Let go of that. This will be the first time that I've run... first time that I've loaded this in this version of the engine. Which is cool. Everything seems to still work. So, the scene layout for a Spicy Meatball is quite small, but it's quite dense. And then the puzzle editor as well. Not a lot of complexity here. There's like only one puzzle, I think, that has like 3 parts to it. And everything else is just like single action puzzles. But it is quite dense. Lots of mutually exclusive things and lots of different branching alternative ways to get to different places and stuff. Yeah, it's not... the puzzle editor and the state manager make it easier to avoid state-related problems to the extent that you don't ignore them. So if you're not paying attention, you still can end up in situations where things aren't doable and you need to update and tweak and change things. But it's programmatically easier to identify dead ends. It's programmatically easier to identify like unreachable states and stuff. And so something that I mentioned back here was like a some reports on sort of content issues that might need to be addressed. Um, that's a key part of that sort of thing, if that makes sense. Nothing's gonna save you from your own oversights, or if you're not paying attention. If you can always just type in something that's wrong. Like you can type in the wrong name of a thing, and I might give you a little warning down here that it's not a valid object. But if you let's not do that. But if you choose to ignore that, then you're still going to end up with problems, and so forth. And it is tricky in that you've got to switch a bunch of contexts to make sure that make sure that your front door here has two states when you're messing with the state stuff over here. So I want to add nice, easy ways. One of the other editor updates that I want to do is make it so that when you're looking at what objects does this affect, you can like click on that and jump straight to it, or bring up a summary of it, or something that allows you to see all that information in one place without having to change contexts so frequently. But I feel like spicy meatballs like an easier one to look at and get a feel for. But there's also this. I did it briefly here. There's the ability to collapse a puzzle. So if you've got something that's like a complex, a whole bunch of actions here, you can press C and it'll shrink it down just to the name of the puzzle, so that you can see. If I do Shift C, it'll do it for all of them. But that makes it a bit easier to kind of go, okay, well, what are the things that what are the kind of, ignoring the individual actions? What are the relationships between all these things? Although again, I've picked the wrong one to show that. So if I go back to Winter's Wake, for example. Yoink. And I go back to the puzzle editor here, so we've got things that are like over here. I think I got one that's where is it? It's hiding from me. There's one that's like snakes around a bunch. Hey, there it is. So yeah, if I wanted to collapse that down, not see all of these like 6 interactions, I can just collapse it down into that, and that's. We're looking at this kind of thing. We can just like shrink it all down, and that makes it all a bit easier to understand and follow, compared to the larger, more complex sets of individual discrete actions. And also, there's a mode where if I guess I can do it. I can go into the avalanche scene here, and I can play it, and I can pick up the branch, and then I can zip off into the woods. And then I can go to the lake. And then I can pick up a stone. And I can skip a stone in a lake twice. And then I can go back into the editor and over to the puzzle editor here, and it will show just a slightly different rendering on these puzzles. It shows that I've... Did I implement it for the collapse stuff? No, I didn't. Okay. So it says like these 2 tasks have been done, this task has been done, and the first 2 tasks of this one have been done. In a way that if you're searching through looking for state problems, being able to like see how everything has progressed is kind of valuable to see that. Like you just jump in here and see the current states or current progress through the puzzle list. And where the state manager is at. Something that I want to do before the next Icicle Jam is make it so that you can manually set stuff as done. And that way I could sort of, I don't know, control click these 5 here and effectively have done, when I run the game, then it will be set to that state, rather than having to work through it in game. And that as well will make it a bit faster and easier for testing and stuff. But yeah. Alright, well my dinner is about ready, so I'm going to disappear. I hope that's been an interesting look at some of the Winter's Wake. Oh yeah, you see we've exited south from the crossroads. There's like interesting patterns that you end up with like this. There are a bunch of different exits that you can leave this scene via, and I wanted them to whenever you exit the crossroads for the first time, I want to change the scene state so that it doesn't play that little piece of music when you enter the next time. And so I ended up with this thing here where we've got a puzzle thing. We only want one of them to turn, we only want one of them to change the state of that scene, and then they all have to cancel the rest, which is kind of fun. Yeah, no worries. Hope it was interesting. Yeah, hoping to have another build out soon. I just got to get to the bottom of that situation I was in. Oh, and there's also a game editor, which this one does have scrolling. Hooray! There we go. You can middle click and drag for scrolling, or you can use the scroll wheel, whatever's most comfortable. But that's where you set like your game name and text margins and text colors and your inventory and sound effects and what all the menu text says and what fonts you're using and that sort of stuff. So that's fun as well. But yeah, so it's still got a big question mark on whether or not I'm going to do a dialogue editor, a dialogue system. Wouldn't mind having a some kind of like clipper library, I guess, like for text stuff, or some kind of like persistent notes tray. So if you've got locations or character names or what have you, that you can easily get a hold of those for copying and pasting or inserting, rather than having to type things out. Or maybe do autocorrect for or autocomplete, sorry, for things in like a clip library. And that way, if you're typing a character's name, you sort of use the autocomplete to guarantee you've got the correct spelling every time. Yeah, spell checker support's another thing that I got to add in. There's just lots of things. Someone asked earlier if I was planning to do, or Chainsaw Carpenter asked earlier if I was planning to do support for multiple languages. Plan, yes. How realized those plans will be, I don't know just yet. But I would like to make it so that it's possible to support other languages. Unicode support is high on my list here. I was thinking about pot support, but I just don't know if that makes sense for the type of data files I'm using. I need to sit down and have a good think about what is the best way to implement support for multiple languages. Is it going to be? It's just got to be another set of the data files with all the strings in different languages or whatever. That's an option, but it's the option that is least maintainable for developers. In that anytime you make a change to logic in one, let's say you support 6 languages, then you've got to make those changes to 6 things. So what I guess would make sense would be to do like kind of automated index all of the strings in all of the scenes, in all of the objects, in all of the puzzles, and give them like a numeric identifier and put that into the data file, and then have some kind of data set or database that has mappings for each of those numeric values in a bunch of different locales, and that could be exported as a CSV or something, and so you can share that with your localization people, import those in, bring all those in. If you want to do it via a shared Google Doc or whatever, then do that, whatever, and then pull that back into the game as an extra resource that string lookups are done against. Which I guess is probably the most sensible way to do things. It would probably make sense to store that in some kind of um, uh, well, I don't know. It could make sense to do that in a if they've got numeric indices, then just a normal map might be fast enough, but size-wise, it's gonna be pretty big. I don't know. Something to think on. But that's probably the direction that I would go in. Um, yeah, I would like to make it easier for other developers to be able to do that sort of stuff. I won't have the budget or the resources to support multiple languages with this game. Like I don't know. It's probably be like 1 or 200,000 words, and it's just too big. You know, it doesn't sound very nice, but that's the reality is that uh, you know it's a lot of money to you know per word might not be much, but you multiply that by a couple 100,000, and then multiply that by 6 or 8 or 12 or however many languages you're going to support, and suddenly that's a really big, very difficult thing to justify if you're a solo developer with no budget. But yeah, we'll see how things go. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up. Thanks for watching again. I mentioned that I'm prototyping a thing. I would like to be able to talk about that within the next week or so. I don't know. I was kind of hoping to have a prototype out and ready by Wednesday, but I don't think that's going to happen. So we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, I'm hoping to be able to talk about that soon. So if that sounds exciting, if the idea of me working on a project sounds exciting, because that's the only detail you got, then yeah, keep an eye out, and I will we'll be talking about that. So yeah, probably we'll share things on Twitter and Discord and IRC and obviously on my Patreon thing. Yeah, that's the thing that it's for. Yeah, has a horse in it, which does not get a lot of screen time, I suppose. It's fairly occluded, but yeah, got a couple more placeholder assets to make as well before we can get that in the prototype, and then there's a bunch of other logic that needs working before it's ready to go. I don't know. I've kind of prioritized doing this Winter's Wake stuff, which has slowed things down. I might step back from it and push a bit harder at this prototype because I think it's important to wrap up that sooner rather than later, just because of the time frames I'm looking at with other things. So yeah, we'll see how it pans out. But anyway, keep an eye out if a game that happens to include a horse sounds interesting. Yeah, no, probably quite distant from Animal Farm. It is. Yeah, I don't know. I worry. I won't. I don't want to talk about it until I know whether or not I'm going to be actually working on it. So I need to get the prototype done before I can make that call. And the main reason is because I feel like it is a game, or will be a game, that would be a game that would be very easy to inadvertently present as more exciting than it is. So I think it's interesting, but it's intentionally going to be a small scope game, and I think it's very easy to envisage and imagine and project a large scope game onto the concept. So yeah, I want to make sure that I've got a good handle on where the project is going and what level of expectations are appropriate to set before I talk about it. So, yeah. But anyway, time for me to eat some dinner. Have fun. Goodbye.